There's such a charm that small horror games have. It's hard to explain, but seeing them take any creative liberty at all in an effort to terrify their players is so admirable. And ironically, it gives them this oddly comfy feeling. Unfortunately, not all small budget horror games are created equal. Despite the comfy nature of these small titles, their quality can definitely vary, to say the least. As sad as that is, when you find a small horror game that actually has some merit, some strengths, and something admirable about it, the feeling is unmatched. In my recent binge of small horror games, one in particular stood out to me a ton. In spite of its goofy name and unfortunate cover, there's a lot to love about this title. Today, I'm talking about Made of Scare. This isn't a perfect game by any means, but the ideas here are nicely fleshed out to make the experience scary and, more importantly, fun. Made of Scare was developed by a Welsh gaming company aptly named Welsh Interactive. There's no real combat in the main story mode, more on that later, and yet it's structured like a Resident Evil game. Quite an interesting combination, wouldn't you agree? I know that this game didn't review too well, but honestly, I had fun with this game. As hot of a take as this might be, I want to put my thoughts out there. Made of Scare never really got a lot of love or attention, but I think that a game like this deserves better. So sit back, relax, hear me out about this game, and most importantly, enjoy. This game offers some excellent surprises, but let's start with the story. I won't be doing a deep dive on the plot of this game, but basically, the player character named Thomas Evans receives a letter from his lover, Elizabeth Williams, telling him to travel to the Scare Hotel and bring with him a newly composed melody. When you arrive at the hotel, you quickly find that something is horribly wrong. It looks like a tornado hit the inside of the building, and you quickly discover that you're locked inside. When you get a phone call from Elizabeth, she informs you that the hotel staff has gone mad after being taken over by an evil cult, but she doesn't really elaborate on that. She tells us that she's hiding out in the attic of the hotel, and we must rescue her after finding 4 cylinders that, when put together, will play a melody to stop this evil. Now, a certain melody drove the hotel staff mad in the first place. It was a song that was sung by sirens long ago that caused everything. So that's why something as seemingly random as a song can fix this. You see, Elizabeth's mother and father are leaders of a cult named the Quiet Ones. These people found a real, live siren in the depths of a sunken ship, and they kept it as a prisoner. They wanted to use this siren to hypnotize more people into joining them. Elizabeth's father realized that his daughter had a singing voice that could sing the siren song for his own personal gain. He forced her to practice all day, every day, and he wasn't particularly kind about it, as you can imagine. By the time Elizabeth had enough and hid away to avoid this cruelty, it was too late. Recordings of her voice were already made, and when these recordings were played together, the siren song would grow complete, and thus can be used as a weapon against anyone. Neat, right? Made of Scare also gives you a nice little bit of history, informing the player that sirens were originally half bird, half women creatures in Greek mythology. Over time, translation issues and general confusion regarding this creature led to the misconception that sirens were more fish-like. Another piece of lore given to the player pertains to the abuse that Elizabeth had to endure at the hands of her own family. Whenever you save your game for the first time at a new phonograph, it'll play a recording of an interaction that Elizabeth had with her family.
Is that filthy mongrel inside again?
Father, she still pines is all. She misses...
I'll give it a reason to pine. Come here, you mutt. Abraham? Abraham! Where is that useless brother of mine?
Father, please! Please, she just misses Mother.
Abraham! Abraham! I'll be rid of this dog once and for all.
It's pretty cool. Back to the important thing though. The search for these 4 cylinders is your main quest throughout the entire game, and that doesn't really ever change unless you read between the lines in some notes and do some extra stuff. With this being the only real objective, the game can be beaten between 4 to 5 hours, and I actually like that length. It's nice and replayable just the way I like it. It's funny, I guess I got somewhat carried away while talking about the story. The game has a shockingly engaging plot, and I found myself actually paying attention to the lore. It's time to discuss the meat and potatoes of this game, though. Let's discuss the gameplay. I guess it's easiest to describe the gameplay as a mix between Outlast and Resident Evil. While it never hits the highs that either of them hit, it blends together surprisingly well. The Resident Evil aspects are what you'd expect. You have several puzzles around the hotel to solve as different floors and wings open up as you do so. The Outlast similarities come in the form of your defenselessness and having the ability to run and hide from enemies. Kind of. Almost every enemy in this game is blind, so your method of hiding isn't exactly what you'd expect. You don't have to duck under desks or hide in lockers to avoid a cult member's gaze. I'm sure you see where this is going. Instead of staying out of a cult member's line of sight, you need to stay quiet when you're within earshot. To help you stay quiet, the player can hold their breath when enemies are near to become undetectable. Obviously, you have to time this just right. You can't hold your breath forever, after all. At some point, Thomas will be forced to inhale somewhat loudly. There have been some pretty stressful moments when I've been stuck in the corner of a room while a hunter slowly crept towards me. In these situations, I've had to perfectly time holding my breath while carefully walking around this foe and hoping I can make some distance before I need to inhale. The reason I emphasize carefully is because bumping into objects also makes noise, which was typically a big cause of me getting found out. Now, you might be thinking that this sounds kinda shallow and somewhat easy, and early on in the game, you'd actually be kinda correct. Initially, you'll likely sneak around foes with little to no issue at all. You may even think to yourself, what's all the hype here about? Then, an enemy hears you. They'll start ruthlessly attacking you, forcing you to run away. As you run, you reach a crazy realization. Oh my goodness, this is a blind enemy with elite hearing, and I'm running. He's hearing every footstep and following me around everywhere. How am I supposed to get away from this guy? You soon come to another realization that now you're damaged. Your character is breathing heavily and making a lot more noise. This is what makes this game a lot more interesting. After inevitably being spotted, you'll have to get creative with your escape. Oftentimes, I'd try running into a hallway with multiple doors, immediately stopping in my tracks, crouching, and quietly sneaking into a room to elude a predator. Made of Scare provides you with one tool to get away when you're cornered and running isn't an option. The only quote-unquote weapon you get in the main story is something called a phonic modulator. This tool is a noisemaker that'll temporarily stun enemies to allow you to make a swift escape. Of course, this thing requires ammo in the form of charges to use. The game is insanely stingy with these charges, so you'll have to be very careful. If that wasn't bad enough, towards the end of the game, this weapon breaks, leaving you with no easy out when caught by enemies. That really is the entire extent of enemy interactions, though. It isn't anything too crazy, but what's here is quite fun. The only thing this game leaves to be desired is a little more enemy variety. Every non-boss enemy operates the same. What if, to spice things up, there is an enemy that could use echolocation to find the player, requiring you to be completely still sometimes? What if there were enemies that simply weren't blind, and were totally immune to the phonic modulator? Oh, yeah, you may have noticed that I said non-boss enemies a second ago. Yeah, this game has boss fights. They give the game a lot of soul and mix up different sections nicely. On one particular floor, there's this Mr. X type of boss that follows you through every room and corridor. What's funny is he always knows where the player is and never gives you a moment's rest. This makes him super stressful in an awesome way. His particular boss fight involves you leading him into a room at the exact moment an electric generator goes off, causing him to drop a required key item to open up another part of the hotel. There's another boss fight that's more of a red light, green light sort of thing. When the monster is playing piano, you can move around and activate generators, and when he stops playing, you have to stand completely still, otherwise he'll hit you for massive damage. Though it's nothing too deep, it complements the Resident Evil style design super well. Getting from point A to point B is rarely an easy task with these unkillable threats. Trying to solve puzzles with these things skulking around is really stressful, but it makes things so much more rewarding. I quite enjoy it. Now, I feel like I absolutely have to discuss the challenge mode in this game. Like I said, the main story features no traditional combat to speak of at all. In challenge mode, though, the player is in for quite a surprise. You're simply tasked with exiting the hotel through a series of rooms filled to the brim with enemies. Here's where the shocker comes. Immediately after beginning, you get an axe, a pistol, a shotgun, and a rifle. You then find all the cult members that tortured you throughout the game and blow their heads off. This is like having a special game mode in Outlast where you get to use a rocket launcher with infinite ammo. What's somehow even crazier is that they even have varying enemy types in this mode. There's these shirtless guys with deep sea diver helmets that shoot lasers at you. There's these guys that go invisible and multiply, and there's this annoying lady that attacks with AoE shouts while she teleports all around the room. When you complete the challenge, you even get graded on how well you performed, encouraging more attempts. It's absolutely insane, and that's what makes it so awesome. It's very combat focused, and while the combat here is certainly not Doom Eternal levels of magical, it's good old-fashioned fun. My friends and I were all hanging out just passing the controller around on this mode, having a great time, if that's any indication of how much fun can be had with this mode. This is the perfect side to complement the main game, it really is. Apparently this was added to the game as a free update in 2021. I give the folks at Wales Interactive a ton of credit for doing this, they really didn't have to. I must mention though, the frame rate in this mode is definitely not as smooth as it is during the main story. You have to wonder, what would the main game be like with weapons? I think it's a neat idea. Imagine taking out a cult member or two in a difficult room to help complete a puzzle with more ease, at the cost of alerting just about every other enemy on the floor. It's something to think about, especially if we're lucky enough to get a direct sequel, and not just Scare Ritual, a round-based zombie shooter. It may not be the most in-depth game ever made, but man, I really enjoyed Made of Scare. It has this AA video game charm that seems to be absent in the industry nowadays, and I can't stress how much I appreciate that. The gameplay here is fun, sneaking around cultists feels tense, the boss fights are a nice change of pace, the puzzles are fun, and the story is quite enjoyable too. It's a nice package that offers quite a lot of fun. It's cheap and it's an enjoyable adventure. Because of that, I have no issue at all recommending Made of Scare to horror fans. The stressful moments combined with the fun of navigating the world is balanced quite well. Made of Scare is really good at being made of scare. It's something unique. And you know, if you're looking for something scary to play, and you're down to sink your teeth into something different, Made of Scare will not disappoint.